In the heart of Malawi, where the land seemed endless and the sky stretched out in hues of orange and violet, there was a village called Masanje. The people of Masanje lived in harmony with nature, their huts woven from the thick grasses of the plains, their lives dictated by the rising and setting of the sun. The elders spoke often of the old days when the village was younger, and the spirits walked freely among the people. But now, in these latter years, something dark had begun to stir. The elders whispered of a curse. Strange things had been happening. Cattle had been found dead under mysterious circumstances, crops withered without reason, and children grew sick in the night. It wasn't the work of the spirits, they knew that much. No, this was something worse, something human. At the edge of the village, near the edge of the dense jungle, lived an old man named Kofi. He was not a healer, nor a priest, but a hunter, a witch hunter. Kofi was feared and respected by many, for he had earned his title through years of tracking dark magic and destroying those who trafficked in it. His reputation had spread far and wide, and it was said that even the most powerful witches dared not cross his path. When the elders of Ikenbo realized that something foul had taken root in their village, they sent for Kofi. The moon was rising high in the sky when Kofi arrived, his footsteps silent as a shadow. He was an imposing figure, tall and lean, with skin dark as night and eyes sharp as a hawk. He carried a long, weathered spear, its tip glinting in the pale light. His face was marked with scars from battles fought in far-off lands, and his hair, once full and thick, had turned to silver. Kofi sat with the elders in the central gathering hut, his eyes narrowing as they spoke. They explained the strange happenings, the deaths, the sickness, and the fear that gripped the people. They begged him to help, for they knew that he was the only one who could rid them of this evil. Without a word, Kofi stood up, his gaze sweeping across the village. His presence seemed to command the wind, still the night air. He was a man of few words, for he did not need to speak much. He was a man of action. "You will find what you seek," one of the elders said, her voice trembling. "But be careful, Kofi. There are rumors of a powerful witch who lives near the village. She is said to be as old as the earth itself, and her magic is as dark as the shadows." Kofi nodded once, his eyes gleaming with understanding. He had heard such rumors before. He had faced witches of every kind, from the lowly to the ancient, and he knew that fear was a dangerous thing. He would not be swayed by it. He set off alone into the night, his senses sharp, his body moving with the grace of a predator. The moon was full, casting long shadows over the land, and the sounds of the night were hushed in anticipation. Kofi made his way through the village and into the jungle beyond, the path narrowing as the trees thickened. He could feel the weight of the earth beneath his feet, and he knew that this was no ordinary hunt. After hours of walking, he came to a clearing, where the air seemed thick with an unnatural energy. There, in the center of the clearing, was a lone figure standing by an ancient tree. She was tall, draped in robes of black, with long, braided hair that shimmered like silver threads. Her eyes glowed a faint red, and her presence radiated power. "You've come, witch hunter," the woman said, her voice soft but carrying on the wind. Kofi's hand rested on the hilt of his spear, but he did not move closer. He studied her, feeling the magic crackling in the air. "I have come to end this," he said, his voice low. The woman laughed, a sound like the rustling of dead leaves. "You think you can end it? I am not the only one. You are too late, old man. The curse is already upon them." Kofi narrowed his eyes. "The curse ends tonight." The witch raised her hand, and the wind howled in response. From the ground, tendrils of dark energy began to rise, snaking toward Kofi's legs, trying to bind him in place. But Kofi was swift. With a powerful leap, he avoided the grasping tendrils and hurled his spear at the witch. The witch twisted her body in a blur of motion, and the spear missed by inches, embedding itself into the earth. She sneered, her red eyes glowing brighter. "You are weak, Kofi. The spirits of the earth are with me. You cannot win." But Kofi had faced worse odds before. He drew a dagger from his side, its blade etched with the sigils of his ancestors. He muttered an incantation, and the blade began to glow with a faint blue light. He knew that this was a battle of will as much as strength. The witch's power was rooted in the earth, but Kofi's magic came from the heavens and the spirits of his people. He lunged again, this time aiming for the witch's heart. But the witch was quick, her hands weaving through the air, calling on dark forces to protect her. A shield of shadow appeared before her, blocking Kofi's strike. For a moment, the two stood locked in a deadly dance, each testing the other's resolve. Then, with a sudden cry, Kofi pushed forward, summoning all his strength and the magic of his ancestors. He struck the witch's shield, shattering it with a thunderous crack. The witch staggered back, surprised by the force of the blow. In that moment of weakness, Kofi struck. With a swift motion, he drove his dagger deep into the witch's chest. She gasped, her red eyes widening in shock and pain. Her body convulsed, and the dark energy around her began to dissipate, swirling into the night air like smoke. The curse that had gripped the village began to lift, and the earth seemed to sigh in relief. The witch's body crumbled to dust, leaving nothing but ashes in the wind. Kofi stood over her, breathing heavily, his dagger still clenched in his hand. He had won, but he knew that the battle was not over. There would always be others, always more witches to hunt. With the witch defeated, Kofi turned and walked back to the village, his steps steady and sure. The night had grown quiet again, the air clear and fresh. When he returned to Ikenbo, the people gathered around him, their faces filled with gratitude and awe. The elders bowed to him, their eyes filled with reverence. "You have saved us, Kofi," one of them said. "You have broken the curse." Kofi nodded, his expression unreadable. "The curse is broken," he said quietly. "But remember, evil never sleeps. It is always waiting. And there will always be those like me to stop it." As the village celebrated, Kofi retreated to the edge of the savannah, where the wind whispered through the tall grasses. He looked out over the land, knowing that his work was far from done. The hunt would continue, and the darkness would always find new ways to creep into the world. But for now, Ikenbo was safe, and that was enough. For tonight, the witch hunter could rest.